Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and today the Stock Car Pro Championship in Brazil came to an end at Interlagos. Gabriel Casagrande did become a three-time champion of the series. Very well done to him. It was a very tight final race. There were 5 drivers who could still win the championship, and they were all, well, 4 of them were up at the top end of the field. Julio Campos ran into some issues and dropped to the back. But it was still up for grabs. If something happened to Casagrande, there were other drivers who could have taken the championship. I am a little bit disappointed that Felipe Massa didn't win the championship, but he put a good drive into both races, but in particular the feature race he finished second. He finished second in the championship, and I believe it's the first time he's done that in any championship since 2008. This will be a shorter video because I don't actually have too much to say about the races themselves. They were fine, not the most exciting in stock car history, but honestly, if you've never watched this series, go out of your way to find it. It is absolutely brilliant. I watch it for free on YouTube with Portuguese commentary. Obviously, cannot understand a word that's being said. I do not speak Portuguese at all, but I still love watching this series. Going into the weekend, there were 7 drivers in with a chance of winning the championship, but it was in Casagrande's favour. He had a decent enough points gap over his rivals. Not too much happened in either race, but it was, I think, if going into the final race, if Casagrande had finished outside the top 10, then if one of the other title rivals had won the race, they could have beaten him. So it was close, but it did require things happening to Gabriel Casagrande. And it's not a certainty in stock car. Things happen, like absolutely crazy things happen all the time. We've seen them, like cars running over gantries, mass pile-ups, cars being launched into the air on the dirt. You do see some crazy things in this series. But Gabriel Casagrande coming out on top again. It was a brilliant season from him. He wasn't necessarily at the top of the pile throughout the whole year. It's really only the last couple of rounds where he's got back up to the front and started to pull away to take that championship. Felipe Massa was leading the championship at one point, but then, honestly, about a dozen different drivers have led the Brazilian Stock Car Pro Series this year. It was an interesting year, but what's more interesting is the future of this series. 2025, they are replacing the sedans with SUVs. I thought this was going to be very strange, but having seen the first stock car SUV a few rounds ago and seeing it on the screens leading around at the start before the race, it looks fantastic. Not only that, but Mitsubishi are also now joining the series. This series doesn't always have a lot of manufacturers. At one time it was just Chevrolet, and there have been others that have come and gone. Peugeot were running in it a few years ago. I think Fiat might have been there, or Renault. Subaru, Mitsubishi maybe. I don't know about Subaru. Mitsubishi I think have been there before. But I don't think it's ever really been more than, at most, 4 or 5, and even then, that was only for like a year or 2. So we're going to have 3 manufacturers in this series again, which is fantastic. SUVs, which I think is a very, very sensible move. They're the only touring car or stock car, GT, whatever you're on, who have gone SUVs. That is going to be the future, at least in the short term, because that is what most manufacturers make. Not a lot of manufacturers are making sedans these days. They're not making hatchbacks. They're making SUVs, MPVs, the hatch cross things. I don't really know what they call them. Motorsport needs to adapt for these new types of bodies of cars. Honestly, this series is pioneering the SUV in motorsport. It will become widespread in the motorsport world. I guarantee it, because it's the best way to attract manufacturers. Because, as I said, most manufacturers have an SUV, whereas a lot of them don't have sort of cheap, low-level sedans and hatchbacks anymore. I think it's a great move. I'm really glad they haven't gone to electric, because we've seen how disastrous that has been for other series. And honestly, at this point, it's only Formula E making that work. I know in motorbike racing, the electric MotoGP series is a lot more successful, than we've seen on four wheels. And that's great. But for car racing of every kind, it's been tried across the board and hasn't worked anywhere except in Formula E. And I'm not sure how long that has until it becomes redundant. So Stock Car Pro are doing everything right. Not going to electric, great move. Choosing to have SUVs instead of saloons, I think that's a really good choice. The designs I've seen for these cars are incredible. They look great. They have absolutely smashed it. The racing in Brazil is incredibly exciting. They have fantastic racetracks. They put plenty of cars on the grid. It's usually very exciting to watch. You have to watch this series in 2025 because I'm going to say it now. Felipe Massa will be champion, and it'll be his first championship win of any kind since 2001. But I think momentum is on his side. I can see Felipe Massa winning it next year. And that would be an incredible achievement after everything he's been through for the last 16 years or so. He had to wait 15 years to take a win. He's done it a couple of times now. I think 2025 will be his year. It'll be close again. I guarantee going into the final round next year, there'll be 5 or 6 drivers going for that championship. I think, honestly, it's going to be a stellar year next year for the Stock Car Pro Series. In general, I think Motorsport, it's had a couple of rough patches here and there for various reasons. I think next year, 2025, is going to be an incredible year for every series out there. You have the WRC and the BTCC moving away from hybrid and going back to internal combustion engines. They've made their way back into the World Rallycross Series. Extreme H is going to start. We're going to see if hydrogen is a better fuel source than electricity. We have a very interesting Formula 1 grid with quite a few more debutants than we've seen previously. The IndyCar grid is looking interesting. Toyota have announced they're coming back to supercars in Australia, so that's going to have more than 2 manufacturers, again, for the first time for a few years. There's a lot of changes being made. A few series have died. That's not always a bad thing. It means other championships have stronger grids. I think other series are doing cost-cutting things that might help. GT racing is incredibly popular at the moment, and there are so many different GT series out there. World Endurance Championship, IMSA, endurance racing is really at an all-time peak in terms of exciting racing. So, as motorsport fans, we are very, very lucky. Brazilian Stock Car Pro, it's a series everyone should pay attention to. As I said, it's a pioneering series. It's very, very important. Make sure you watch it in 2025. Congratulations to Gabriel Casagrande, I guess. This was a very good campaign from him. 3-time champion. He is a great driver. I would very much like to see him try something else, maybe like DTM or something. It'd be interesting to see him outside of Brazil, but I don't know what it would take to make that happen. But other than that, keep watching Motorsport. Have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year. There will be more content coming for Christmas and, of course, after. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you to everyone who has recently. I've had a sudden surge of subscribers just before Christmas. That's a great present from the world. Thank you so much, and have a good one.